Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to show you how to create your very own meal calendar. And the way this works is you start by double clicking on the very first day and selecting a day, and then everything updates automatically. So you have 7 days of the week and then you have 4 weeks. So every single one of these days works exactly the same. You have 2 drop downs for breakfast, 2 for lunch, then dinner and snacks. And each drop down is filled with your own customized dish ideas. So as you can see, the one for dinner is different from the one for lunch. And then the one for breakfast is also different. So these dish ideas are being pulled into their corresponding section from this table. So whenever I add a new breakfast idea, for example, I can jump into my calendar and I will see it here. So I thought this would be a great way to learn how to create drop downs using elements found in different ranges that are also found on a different tab. And as usual with my tutorials, we're gonna start with a blank tab and I'm gonna show you how to create this entire thing from scratch. And if this looks familiar to you, this is exactly how I created these sections right here on my meal planners. So this is the extended version, and then the premium edition, this section right here, it's exactly how I created this drop down feature. These are being pulled from the dish ideas section. So all I did was turn that into a calendar view. So I hope you like it. I hope you find it useful, and let's get into it. So we're gonna start with a blank sheet and we're gonna name this calendar. And as usual, I suggest that you do everything in exactly the same cells that I'm doing it, just so if you run into any issues and something's not behaving the way it should, your file looks exactly like mine, and then you can take a look and figure out what's different and where you went wrong. So I'm gonna start by creating this section right here. So we're gonna jump into cell B5 on our blank tab, and we're gonna type in the label week 1. And then we're gonna select the 2 cells that are right below that one, and we're gonna merge them together. And then we're gonna give them a black border. So they're still selected. I'm gonna click on borders. I'm gonna select a black border, and then I'm gonna click on outer borders. And now we're just gonna take this, we're gonna copy it, and we're gonna select everything from cell B8 to cell B13. And we're gonna paste. So that gives us our 4 sections for our 4 categories. I'm gonna make these borders smaller, and then we're gonna input our labels for each of these sections, which will be breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. So I'm gonna make this bigger, and right now this isn't looking that pretty, so there's something I like to do with every single one of my templates. You're gonna select the entire sheet by clicking on this square right here. So when you do that, the selection turns blue, and then you can center everything by clicking on this center option. You can align it to the middle, and as you can see, it's already starting to look better. And then you're gonna click on this text wrapping option, and you're gonna choose wrap, which is the middle one. So we already have the layout for this section, and now let's create this one. So we're gonna start by making these 2 columns smaller. So you can just click and drag to select them at the same time, and then if you change the width of one of them, both of them will change since they were selected at the same time. So what we're gonna do is we're going to create this functionality in which you double click and then you can select a day. So I'm gonna go ahead and select cell E5. Then I'm gonna click on data validation, and then this sidebar pops up. I'm gonna click on add rule, and from this criteria option, I'm gonna click there and I'm gonna select the option is valid date. And then I'm gonna click on reject input because we want to only have a date here. I'm gonna click on done. And if you double click here, a calendar should appear. So you can just go ahead and select any date that you want. So right now we have our first day and we need 7 of them, and we need them to update according to this one. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna select cell F5 and we're gonna do equals, and then we're gonna select cell E5 and we're gonna do +1 and enter. So that should give us the very next day. And then we're still missing 5 days. So we're gonna click on this circle right here and we're gonna drag 5 cells and we're gonna release. So this same formula was applied to these next 5 days. And that's exactly the same as just copying, selecting the next 5 cells and pasting. So that's 2 ways of doing the same thing. And right now, this isn't looking the same as this. So the way I format this is these cells right here are still a date behind the scenes. I just formatted the look so it would look prettier. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna select all of these 7 days, and then I'm gonna click on Format, Number, and then Custom Date and Time. So you can find one that you like. In my case, I like month and day. So I'm gonna click there, and then I'm gonna click on Apply. So that's looking better. Now I'm gonna make this a bit wider. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna click on column E, and then I'm gonna drag all the way to column K. And then if I change the width in one of them, it will change in the rest as well. And now we're gonna create this up here. And this is a trick that I like to use, and it's really quick. So as you can see, this is updating according to whatever day you select. So if I select a Thursday, that's what I see up here. If I select a Monday, that's what I see up here. And the way I did that, it's super simple. You're just gonna select cell E2, and you're gonna do equals, and you're gonna click on this first day down below, cell E5, enter. And then you're just gonna click on this circle, and you're gonna drag all the way to the very last day. Again, that's the same as just copying, selecting this, and pasting. The formula is updating accordingly. So right now what we did is we're just getting this exact same date. And the trick is that behind the scenes, this is just a date. It's referencing these days down below. So we're gonna select all of these 7 days on row 2. We're gonna click on Format, Number, and then Custom Date and Time. And we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna just click right next to whatever we're seeing here, and we're gonna delete until there's nothing left. And then we're gonna click on this arrow over here, and we're gonna select the option day. And the trick is you're gonna click on these arrows and you're gonna select day as full name. And then you're gonna click on Apply. So this is basically a date, and it's exactly the same date as this one. The only difference is in the formatting. So if you double click on this cell and you select a different day, that should be working properly. You should get a Wednesday when you select August 9, for example. So go ahead and check your spreadsheet and see that everything is working properly up to this point. And now we're gonna create our drop downs over here in this very first day. So I'm just gonna select everything from cell E6 to cell E13. I'm gonna click on borders. I'm gonna select the black border, and I'm just gonna click on outer borders. This is just a visual reference so you can follow along. So before we can create our drop downs, we need to create the tab from which we will be pulling those elements. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna click on Add Sheet, and we're gonna create a new sheet. And then we're gonna name this Dish Ideas. So what we're making is this one. So you're gonna select cell B2, and you're gonna input the label breakfast. And then we're gonna do lunch, dinner, and snacks on all 3 cells right next to that one. And again, this is not centered and it's not looking pretty. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna click on this square over here to select the entire sheet. I'm gonna click on Center, Vertical Align, and Wrap. So that's looking better. I'm gonna make this column smaller, and I'm gonna make this 4 wider by selecting all 4 of them and then just altering the width in one of them. And I'm gonna put a limit to this just so it doesn't end up having thousands of rows. So I'm just gonna scroll all the way down to row 101. And then I'm gonna show you a trick so you can select everything that's below that row and delete it. So you're gonna click on Shift, Control, and then down arrow. And that should select everything from row 101 to wherever your tab is ending. And I'm on a Mac, so that was Shift, Control, down arrow. I'm not sure if that's the same in Windows. I think it is. So once you have all of those rows selected, you can just go ahead, right click, and delete them. And then we're gonna add one element to each of this. So I'm gonna go ahead and just very quickly name this one B1. This one will be L1, D1, and S1. So those will be my first examples. And then I'm gonna give this some borders just so you have a better visual reference of what's happening. So I'm just gonna select this first column from the first element all the way down, and I'm gonna give that a border. And immediately after you do that, you can go ahead and click on this paint format button up here. And then immediately after, just watch before doing this, I'm gonna select cell C3, and then without releasing, I'm gonna drag all the way to cell E3. And this same format is going to get applied to these 3 columns. So I'm gonna click and drag from cell C3 to cell E3, and I'm gonna release. And as you can see, these same borders were applied to these 3 columns, and you can absolutely just do that manually as well. And then I'm gonna give some borders to this as well. I'm just gonna select these 4 labels, and then I'm gonna click on borders, and in this case I'm gonna leave this black border, and I'm gonna select this all borders option. So I'm gonna get the outer borders, and then I'm also gonna get these inner borders as well. And I'm gonna make this a bit taller, and I'm gonna select this, make it bolder, and I'm gonna give it font size 12, just so you can really distinguish between the rows that are supposed to have elements and your label at the top. So now we're ready to create our drop downs. So we're gonna jump back into the calendar. Now, what I'm about to do is going to be a little bit time consuming and repetitive, but you only need to do it once for this one day, and then you're just gonna go ahead and copy and paste it on every single day. So it's gonna be a bit time consuming, but that's the only time consuming thing that we're gonna do. So please do not give up on me. And we're gonna select cell E6, which is the first drop down for breakfast. And then we're gonna click on data validation, add rule. And then on this criteria option, we're gonna click on this arrow, and we're gonna select the option that says drop down from a range in parentheses. So if you leave the drop down option, this is where you manually input your options. But if you select the option drop down from a range, you can go ahead and select a range. So we're gonna do that by clicking on this select data range square down here. And it is not to be confused with this one at the top. It has to be this one right below the criteria option. So you're gonna click there, and then this is gonna pop up. So immediately after, you are going to jump into your dish ideas, and then you're gonna click on cell B3, and you're gonna drag a few cells down below. So what we want is we want to select every single one of these cells, but you don't have to click and drag on every single one of them. This is a little trick that I like to do. I just select a few, and then as you can see, this is updating accordingly. So it is selecting the range from the dish ideas tab, and it is selecting range B3 to B9. So in order for this to go all the way down, all you need to do is delete the last number. And you have to be left with something that looks like this. Dish ideas B3 colon and then B. And then you're gonna go ahead and click on OK. And before you click on done, you're gonna click on advanced options. And you're gonna decide if you want to display this as a chip, as an arrow, or as plain text. For this tutorial, I'm gonna go ahead and select arrow, and then I'm gonna click on done. And then I'm gonna close this sidebar, and I'm gonna jump back into the calendar. So if you did everything correctly, what you're gonna see is this drop down right here with the very first option that you selected, which is B1. And then if you jump back into dish ideas, you scroll all the way down and you add an element in the very last row in the breakfast section. So we're gonna go ahead and do B2. That should also appear in your drop down. So this is something that I like to do to make sure that I selected my range properly. I add something in the very first cell, and then I add something in the very last cell. So if both of those appear on my drop down, then that means I did everything correctly. And if you missed something, don't worry, I'm gonna do the exact same thing for lunch, dinner, and snacks. So if it is working properly, you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna copy this cell and you're gonna paste it immediately below. So now you're gonna have both of those breakfast elements in both of those drop downs. Right now, don't worry about this border getting messed up. We're gonna edit that later. So we're gonna go ahead and do the exact same thing for lunch. So we're gonna select this cell. We're gonna click on data validation, and then we're going to click on Add Rule, and from this criteria option we're going to select drop down from a range. Then we're going to click on this Select Data Range button, and we're going to jump back into the dish ideas. We're going to select just a few, and then we're going to delete the last number, which leaves us with the entire column from cell C3 all the way down to the end of that column. We're going to click OK. And then we're going to click on Advanced Options. And I'm going to show you how the chip looks like. So if I jump back into the calendar, this is what the chip looks like. I don't like it, so I'm just going to go ahead and select arrow. And then I'm going to click on Done. And I'm going to close this for a second. And right now I'm seeing the element L1. So I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing that I showed you. And I'm going to add an element at the end of that column, which would be L2. And then if you jump back into the calendar and you check the very first lunch drop down, you should have both elements there. If you do, you did it correctly. So you're just gonna go ahead and copy, and then you're gonna paste. I'm gonna go ahead and do the exact same thing for these two. So you can feel free to pause the video and try to do these two on your own, but I'm just gonna do it anyway in case you need some repetition. So I'm gonna select the dinner option, data validation, add rule. And then on this criteria option, we select drop down from range. We click on this select data range option. We jump into the dish ideas. We scroll all the way to dinner. We select the first element and then we drag down. We delete the last number. We click on OK. As you can see right now, it's a chip by default. So I'm going to click on Advanced Options, arrow, and then Done. So I'm gonna close this, and right now I have my first dinner element. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna add another element in the very last row. So I'm gonna do D2. And then if I see it here, I did this correctly. So I'm just gonna go ahead, I'm gonna copy, and I'm gonna paste it below. And once more for snacks. So this is a little bit time consuming, but you only have to do it once, and then you can just go ahead and paste it everywhere else. So I'm gonna do this very last one, data validation, add rule, drop down from range, and then select data range. I jump back into my dish ideas, I scroll up, find the snack section, select, and then delete the last numbers. So that leaves us with the range E3 and then all the way down. So we click on OK. And again, we get a chip. So we click on Advanced Options, arrow, and then Done. So we're going to check, and we have our first element, and then I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to add one element at the very end, and that's what I'm seeing here. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to paste. So you can just go ahead and once more check that every single one of your drop downs is pulling their corresponding elements. If they're not, you can just go back and figure out what went wrong. So that's pretty much it when it comes to functionality. So I'm gonna make this look pretty, and then I'm gonna show you how we can turn this into this very quickly by just copying and pasting. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna start adding some background colors. So I'm just gonna select these 4 cells, and I'm gonna click on fill color, and the color I'm gonna use is this blue color, and I'll make sure that somewhere in the screen you'll see what hex value I'm using. So just one time I'm gonna show you how you can add a custom color to a cell. So you're gonna click on the area that you want to color, then you click on fill color, and you click on this plus sign right here that says add custom color. So whatever value I show somewhere in the screen, you're gonna input that in here, and then you're gonna click OK, and that should give you the exact same colors that I'm using. And then I'm just gonna click on this day label up here, and I'm gonna make that green. And then for this day label, I'm gonna make that this pinkish red color, and then I'm gonna make this font white. And then I'm gonna format this so there are some divisions between categories and it looks pretty like this one. So I'm gonna start by selecting all of them, and I'm gonna give them a black outer border. And then just to make sure I don't mess them up, I'm just gonna release that selection and then select it again. And once more, I'm gonna click on borders, and I'm gonna select a lighter gray to create my own inner borders. So maybe this third one from right to left, and then I'm gonna click on inner borders. And what that is doing is I just created some inner borders that are a bit lighter than these grid lines. And the reason I did that is that later I'm gonna get rid of the grid lines. So as you can see, there are no grid lines over here. All of these borders I created myself, and I think that looks prettier. These I feel are too harsh. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna add this dashed border right here. So to make it quicker, I'm gonna select both cells from the lunch category. Then I'm gonna click on borders. I'm gonna select a black border, and then I'm gonna click on border style, and I'm gonna select this dashed one right here. And then I'm gonna click two buttons. I'm gonna click top border and bottom border. So I'm gonna do top border, bottom border, and I already have these two. And then I'm just gonna select this second one from the dinner section, and I'm gonna give it a bottom border. And then just a couple more things. I'm gonna make this font bigger. I'm gonna make it size 12. This one, I'm also gonna make it size 12, and I'm also gonna bold it. And then these four, I'm gonna select all of them, and I'm gonna have those be size 11. And then this day label right here, that will be size 12. And then a couple more things. I'm gonna select this first day, and I'm gonna give it some black outer borders. And since we selected this dashed one before, make sure you go ahead and change it back to a regular line. So I'm just gonna change that border style, select the black one, and click on outer borders. And as you can see, I'm actually using a different font that I think looks prettier. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add that here as well. So I'm just gonna click on this square over here that selects the entire tab. And I'm gonna change the font to Quicksand, which is what I liked for this tutorial. And then I'm also gonna give this a black outer border. And finally, and I think I've said finally like 3 times, I'm sorry. This is the last thing. We're gonna select all of this, and then we're gonna give them some white inner borders, just like this ones. So we're gonna select them, we're gonna click on borders, we're gonna change those to white, and then we're just gonna select inner borders. So once you have this, everything else is just pretty much copying and pasting. So we're gonna start by copying the drop downs. So you're gonna select every single one of the drop downs that you created. You're gonna copy those, and then you're gonna click on cell F6, and you're gonna drag all the way to cell K6. So you need to select that range, the range from cell F6 to K6, and then you're gonna paste. And that gives you every single one of your drop downs. So you can just randomly click on those and make sure that everything is looking fine. And once you have that, all we need to do for this first week is we need to just copy the formatting of these 2 cells, but we can do that super fast. You're gonna select everything from the very first day label to the very last drop down. So that's everything from cell E2 to cell E13. And then you're gonna click on this paint format button, and this is gonna turn blue. And immediately after, without clicking anywhere else, and you can watch this before doing it, you're gonna click on cell F2, and you're gonna drag without releasing all the way to cell K2. And if you do it properly, every single one of these days will look exactly like this one. So you click on cell F2 and you drag all the way to cell K2 and you release. And once you do that, this will be looking exactly the same. So we have our very first week, and then the next ones are gonna be a lot easier, pretty much copying and pasting with just a few tweaks. So the very first thing we're gonna do to create the rest of our weeks is we're going to select everything from cell B5 all the way to cell K13. We're gonna copy, we're gonna skip this one row, and we're gonna paste on cell B15. So what we see here is exactly the same thing that we have up top. So we're gonna start by changing this to week 2. And then right now, these 2 look exactly the same and behave exactly the same. If I double click here and I just change this, it's gonna affect this 1 week. So that's the one thing that we need to change in this cell. We need to have this cell be the next consecutive day from this very last one. And we also need to get rid of this calendar because we have no use for it in this row. So what we're gonna do very easily is we're just gonna copy this second day from this second week. So that's cell F15. We're gonna copy that and we're gonna paste it on cell E15, which is our first day of our second week. So after I pasted, I created a mess. it doesn't matter right now. But if I double click here, I no longer see that calendar, which is what we're going for. So right now we have this formula over here that is doing nothing useful. It's just adding 1 to an empty cell, but we don't need that. So you're just gonna press delete on your keyboard. You're gonna get rid of that formula, and this is gonna get all messed up right here. It doesn't matter right now. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna make sure that this cell right here is adding 1 to this one. So you can do it in 2 ways. You can do equals, select this last one, and do +1, enter, and now it works properly. The second way you can do that, I'm gonna delete it, is you can do equals, select this one at the top from week 1, and do +7. And that worked perfectly as well. So now we have our second week, and we don't need to do this for the rest of the weeks. If we just copy this one all the way from cell B15 to cell K23, we can paste it below as many times as we need, and it's gonna work properly. So right now we have August 17, and then it starts on August 18 and increases properly. So if I copy that and then I skip 1 row, make sure you skip that 1 row, because if not, the formula will not adapt properly. So I skip 1 row, I select cell B25 and I paste, and immediately you have August 24 here, and then it starts on August 25. So all you have to do is change that to week 3. And I'm gonna do 1 more week, and since I already copied it, if I paste it again on cell B35, it's gonna work properly. Again, August 31, September 1st. So this is gonna be week 4. And if you like, you can just keep going any number of weeks that you like. So now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get rid of the grid lines, which is what I have here. So I'm just gonna click on view, show, and then I'm just gonna click on grid lines, and that gets rid of the grid lines. I also like to fix this area so it looks like a sidebar to the left, and so it's always there. And I also like to fix these days at the top so they are always there. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna click on column C on the column letter, and then I'm gonna click on view, freeze, and then up to column C. And I'm gonna do the same thing but on a row. So I'm gonna click on row 3, view, freeze, and then up to row 3. So I'm gonna make this one a bit taller, and then I'm gonna make this 2 smaller. And the way you select 2 rows that are not consecutive is on Mac, you use the command key on your keyboard. So you click on 1 row and then you press command, and then you click on a second row, and that selects them both. I'm not sure what that would be on Windows, so if anybody knows, I would appreciate it if you leave that in the comments down below. So if you select 2 non-consecutive ones, you can just make one smaller, and then both of them will be the exact same size. I actually also want this one to be the same size, row 4, so I'm just gonna do that. And the same thing goes for columns. You can click on one, command, click on a second one, and then you can make this smaller. And then you can give it a title in cell B2 if you like. So I'm gonna do meal plan, and you can just make that bolder and bigger. And then in my calendar, these last 2 columns are yellow because I just like to start on a Monday and then have Saturday and Sunday look a bit different. So I actually start mine on Mondays. So for those of you who want yours to look exactly like this one, I'm just gonna go ahead and change these colors right here. So I'm just gonna select these 2 days, and I'm gonna change that to this yellow. And then I'm just gonna select these 2 days, and I'm gonna change those to maybe a darker yellow. And then this font, I don't think it should be white. I think it should be black. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. And then to change this ones, it's very easy. We just need to copy and paste because it's pretty much the same formatting and the same formula. So whenever I copy these and I paste it down below, I apply the formatting, and then the formula will also work because it just adapted. So I'm gonna paste again, I'm gonna paste again, and that's how we get Saturday and Sunday to look a bit different. And then we should also decorate this dish ideas one, but we can do it very fast. We can just select these labels up here, and I'm just gonna give them this purple background, and then I'm gonna change the font to white. I'm gonna make this first row a bit smaller, and then let's change this to the font that we're using on the calendar. So I'm just gonna click on this square over here, and I'm gonna change it to the font Quicksand, and then I'm gonna get rid of the grid lines and I'm gonna add my own. So I'm gonna click on View, Show, Grid Lines, and then I'm just gonna add grid lines in one of these, and then I'll use my paint format trick to add them in the other three. So I'm just gonna go ahead and select all of the elements on the very first column from cell B3 to cell B100, and then I'm just gonna give those some inner borders. I'm gonna choose this third gray from right to left, and then I'm gonna click on inner borders. And once I do that for this one, I can just go ahead and click on the letter B, so I can select the entire column. Then I can click on paint format, and I can go ahead and click and drag to select these three columns immediately after, and when I release, that same formatting is going to get applied. As you can see, this is fixed to the top, so I'm just gonna select row 2, and then I'm gonna click on View, Freeze, and then up to row 2. So that looks great. And I'm just gonna go ahead and select everything from column G to column C by clicking and dragging on the column letter, and then I'm just gonna right click and delete. And finally, I'm just gonna make this smaller. So that's it. You can just go ahead, add your dish ideas into these sections right here. I'm gonna go ahead and copy the examples that I already had, and I'm gonna paste them over here. And if I jump into the calendar, I should see everything properly, and I should be able to select whatever I need to select and just create a meal plan for the month. And if you're interested in purchasing a more advanced version that also helps you create your grocery lists, make sure to check out both of my meal planners. So if you're interested in watching those videos, I will leave the links in the description. So that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please let me know in the comments if you were able to follow along and if you found this to be too easy or too hard. I would love to know your thoughts, and thank you so much for watching.